don't worry about interrupting me. This is really just so you can find out everything that you need to. I obviously get very excited talking about the retreats because I love running them, and I know that they are really helpful for people to do their writing. So I'm just going to play just this beautiful little, I made this myself, a little very short video that just gives you an idea of, this is where I used to run the retreats, and just an idea of, I guess, the vibe, the feeling, just to help you get a bit of an understanding. Tends to be mostly women who come. I don't make it exclusive, but I've only had one man come. So everyone always has their own writing space. Everyone's always happy. There's often tears as well. So stop. Okay. What I'm going to cover in this session is what Retreat with Meg is, who runs it, who it's for, where we go, so the venue, when I hold them, how they're structured, what's included. I'll share a few testimonials with you. Welcome, Alison, as well. Nice to have you here. And questions. But, as I said at the start, don't worry about, you can ask questions at any time. You can interrupt me either by just taking yourself off mute and speaking, or by sticking your hand up if you don't want to do that, or you can drop a question into the chat. I am here for all of those things. So as I said, this is what I'm going to cover. So what my mission is to basically help writers get their writing done. I guess my personal mission is to help writers write. And I do that in a multifaceted way. And one of them is through my writing retreats. And part of the mission of the retreats is to help writers get their writing done, but also about establishing writing friendships in a safe and nurtured space. That's really important to me, is about safety and nurturing, and about friendships, because, I'm assuming that you are all here because you are writers, and so you know how lonely the writing path can be. And it's great when we find some people who are in our corner with our writing. And so the bigger picture is that I create an alumni as well, so that you can all support each other. So what is Retreat with Meg? It's nurtured time for your writing. It's small groups of writers. I keep it small. They're fully catered. There's loads of writing time. There's some group and one-on-one coaching. I have an optional workshop that I run every day. And, I leave it optional in case people are deep in the work and don't want to have to pull themselves out. But I really encourage people to join, because it's everyone always gets something out of it. So from pre-dinner onwards is communal time. So we join together before dinner over nibbles and a drink to talk about how the writing day has gone. We eat together. I'm a big believer in sitting around the table and all eating together and having conversation. And then after dinner, we do a bit of readings. So I ask everyone to do a reading. Alison, great question. The optional workshops, I tailor them to each group depending on what the needs are, but they usually, because I'm a mindset coach as well as a writing workshop facilitator, I do a blend of thinking about how to deepen your relationship with your story, how to deepen your writing, and how to deepen your characters. So sometimes I might take people out for a little walk and we switch on observation and just try and take our characters with us. Other times I might do a drilling down to understand why this story is important for you to write. And yeah, so they're kind of workshops that really deepen your relationship is probably the best way of putting it. And it's often where I see people have the big breakthroughs in those times. And there's a workshop at the start of the retreat, and there's a workshop at the end, and they are they are about intention setting. So I bring everyone into the space and hold the space and make sure everyone's really can be present for the time that they're there. And then before we leave, I do a wrap-up session to make sure everyone can kind of carry with them the messages that they need to carry for their writing and carry what they've learned about themselves and their writing back into their lives, because it's kind of a bit of a bubble that we create. So who runs it? It's me. I am a creativity coach. I'm a mindset coach and also traditional coach. I'm a writer. I'm an editor. I'm a nurturer. I'm a writing workshop facilitator. I do some of the cooking, and at this new place, the guy who runs it will be doing some of the cooking as well to help share the load, which I'm really looking forward to. And his menu is incredibly similar to mine, which just actually made me stop in my tracks, because the food has always been an incredibly important thing to me. About food needs to be nourishing and fresh and delicious, and people need to feel cared for with it. So who are these retreats for? They're for early writers, they're for established authors, fiction writers, non-fiction writers, content writers, and people who are writing for therapy. So in other words, they're for everyone who is a writer, wants to write, is writing, is deep in their writing, is a long way into the process. I have had people come who are award-winning authors. I've had people come who are just playing with writing to try and work out what they're actually going to write. I've had people come who use the time to do some like deep journaling. I've had people come who use the time to write content. Kerry, you don't need to send anything to me before. No. So this is where potentially my retreat differs to some others, where some you have to apply with your writing. And part of why I set this up is because there isn't enough places for people to go where they can just go because they need time to write. And so that's kind of also stands it apart from, say, like Verona is really hard to get into. And, if they're looking for a certain kind of writing, and if you're not doing that, then you're not going to get in. So I'm not really concerned with, the quality of your writing or what you're writing. I'm more about, do you want to come and do writing? Great, come. and I will look after you and make sure that you have everything you need to be able to get your head down in that writing. So what else? Did I have anything else to say about that? Any more questions about that? I know it's a question a lot of people have is, can I come because, I've never published anything. That's okay. I don't care. It's, to be honest, it's a bit of the whole publishing game can be a bit of a gamble. And so it can be really hard to kind of secure time for your writing if you aren't published and all of those things. So where is it held? So this beautiful new place that I have found is in Kinglake. The place is called Kinglake, and it's the one in August will be my first one that I'm running there. But having said that, he's a very experienced. He runs retreats from there all the time. I'm really confident it's going to be able to be the perfect space that I need. I previously ran it from an Airbnb house near Dalesford, and that worked beautifully as well. But I think there's some real advantages with where we're going in Kinglake, in that there's more personal spaces for people, and the proximity to the national park is great, and there's walks all around, there's birds, there's trees. It's absolutely stunning. I was blown away when I went up there. So the space, there's a lot of different spaces. So there's cottages, there's studios, this, I don't know how to point to this. The one kind of at the bottom, second from the left. Yeah. It's like I've never done never done a presentation before. So the picture like down the bottom that has like a 2-story thing, that is at the top is the communal space that we will use. And all those other spots are cottages, studios, guest houses. So there's lots of lovely quiet spaces where you can kind of immerse yourself and, do your thinking, napping, reading, writing, because all of that is part of writing. Obviously, I can't show you the pictures of people at their desks in the new place yet because we haven't run one there yet. But what I wanted to show here is that I set everyone up so that they all have their private space to write. So I think that's a really important thing. And some people like to, then bring their laptops or notebooks out and write in a communal space. But a lot of people just want to deeply immerse themselves into their writing and to not have that train of thought broken. And also what I've discovered about writers is that there's no one set time that people like to write. Some people like to write late into the night. Some people like to wake up at 4 a.m. and write and then nap for the rest of the day. And this new place really allows that lack of disturbance to anyone else as well, because each space has its own kitchenette as well. So you'll be able to, make a cup of tea or coffee. And, if you're getting up early, you might grab your brekkie and take it over there the night before. So as I said, they're private bedrooms. You'll have a writing table in each room, and the linen, I checked it. Like I'm fussy about this stuff. Beds need to be comfortable. If you're working hard with your mind, you need to rest well. So that's all there. But these places also have a couch that you can lounge around on. There's wood fires in each of the cottages, so you can keep yourself warm in the cold. So when do I run them? I usually run them 6 times a year. So last year I ran 6. This year I'm running 5 because I'm actually about to go away for 8 weeks traveling. So I've actually got a writing residency of my own. that I have to go to. So there's less this year. So I've run 2 of them already. So one was 3-night one in February at Musk. Then I did a 6-night one in March at Musk as well. And the next 3 are 3-night, 4-night, and 3-night. So there's one that's a during the week one for people who that will suit them better. And then there's the Thursday to Sunday, which is kind of probably my normal go-to is a Thursday to Sunday. What is different about these new ones is I'm actually starting them earlier. So it'll start at 10 a.m., which gives you that full day on that first day, because I guess I've run enough retreats now to know that time goes incredibly quickly for people. And if I can kind of get them deep into their writing earlier, then they end up a lot more content by the end because they've got a lot more writing done. So how do I structure it? And this probably answers some of that workshop question as well. So in the mornings, this is my general kind of structure, is that in the mornings, it's writing time. I run an optional workshop at 11 a.m. and because I see that as like a just before lunch, and so it's a kind of break of the brain cycle anyway. And then often people will just go and make their lunch then. In the afternoons is, again, your writing time. I run the one-on-one coaching in the afternoons. So I will do that, in a private space with each of the people, each of the participants. So you all get one-on-one coaching session during the retreat, which is a chance for you to kind of explore things at a deeper level. Yeah, great question, Alison. I'm a trained mindset coach, but I'm also trained traditionally. So I can use it to go, like, let's deal with some kind of specific kind of problem that you need to kind of unravel and unknot, or it could be a writing issue. Like, hey, I think I'm structuring it this way, but it's not making sense to me. And we can just kind of work through that and unknot that. And so it's kind of, it can be used for coaching, it can be used for mentoring. I don't really mind. I just want you to use it in the way that is most appropriate for your needs, if that makes sense. And yes, because often by the time, because I get you to do a bit of thinking as well before we go, which, so I have a one-on-one chat with you prior to the retreat. So I get a bit of an idea about what the things are that you're needing help with as well. So I can prepare for that as well. And you might go, actually, I'd love to explore this a little more deeply with you at the retreat. In the evenings, as I said before, so about 6 o'clock, we gather. So you've got pretty much the day from when you wake until 6 o'clock to use how you need. And when people come, I always say on that first day, use this time wisely, because it goes very quickly. But also know that going for a walk, having a nap, reading your book, lying on the floor, all of those things are also part of writing. So sometimes people come and they just need to sleep because they are often carrying a lot before they come. They come, they nap, and then they get up and then they get going. And yes, and we do the readings in the evenings, and I love the readings. And so they're short, just keep people to 500 words maximum. And it's not a critiquing reading, it's a sharing reading. So it's about practicing reading our words and getting more confident with that, because that's really important as writers. And it's also about other people being able to share part of your story of what you're working on. And I find what often comes out of those readings are people going, oh, have you thought about reading this or that? And people start connecting the dots where you may not have seen them before. And so it actually becomes a really beautiful way of communing with each other. So what is included with the retreats? We have, well, obviously you've got your accommodation, your ensuite, and writing area. You get 2 intention setting and writing clarity masterclasses. So that's at the start and the end where I help you really clarify what you're doing. We have the daily writing and coaching workshops, which are optional. The facilitated conversations, I bring an extensive writing and creativity resource library. There's over 45 books. I've actually stopped counting. It's a big suitcase of books. And people can dip into those and use them as they need. A goodie bag, it's fully catered. You get a 1-hour coaching or mentoring session, plus a pre and a post coaching consult, extensive use of the property. And at this place, you can also book in for a massage if you want. That's an optional extra. So if you want that, you pay for that. And, you know, I'll get you all sorted with that. But I do know pretty much every writer needs a massage at some point because our necks and shoulders are very sore. We spend way too much time just doing this. And you can also choose to get some feedback on a piece of writing, which you could submit to me before, and then I can sit down with you and do a feedback session on that. So I'll just give you a few testimonials. So I've obviously had quite a few people come through, and I've never had anyone who's come away disappointed, which is really affirming for me. And it's been, yeah, it's just a really, anyway. Lena, she'd never been with any other writers in anything, and she was unsure whether she could call herself a writer, but she, you know, beautiful writer was, and that's where they, you know, sharing her reading was really good for her because she got to hear that feedback from other people as well, that what she was writing was absolutely stunning and she should keep going. So that was, yeah, her feedback was really lovely. And Carolyn, she, you know, she said that I was born to run retreats and coach creative people, which, you know, it actually made me cry when she told me that. It was just such a lovely thing to hear. I had been wanting to do this for a very long time, and so stepping into it and getting the feedback that it's the right thing was good. Yes, Janelle. Janelle, yes, if you want to have extra feedback on a piece of writing, that will be extra. And yeah, that's something that we would work out when you do the booking. So, and Susan Green, yeah, she, you know, we had a pre-retreat chat and she was, you know, believe it or not, she'd written 16 books, but she's like, I think I've lost it and I don't know how to write anymore and I've lost the joy. And it was so wonderful seeing that reignited, and she left with it. She was just popping and ready to go, and she powered through the work, and so that was fantastic to see. So questions. Anyone have any questions other than the ones you've been popping through, which have been great questions? Oh, Janelle, you did ask about the public transport. So the public transport to get there from Melbourne, there's a train that goes to Mernda, and then there's a bus from there to Kinglake. What I have found in the past is that people, I'll stop sharing so you don't have to look at that screen, that often there's people who give each other lifts. And so once I know who the group is, I then do a bit of a collective group and say, hey, everyone, meet everyone, chat, and these are the people you're going to go away with. And if there's someone who is needing transport, I say, you know, so-and-so needs a lift from Southern Cross if anyone is able to give a lift. So I don't get involved in that I, you know, I say it's up to people to work out their own transport, but you know, people have talked about that being a really great thing because they've gotten to know someone before they've even arrived, and they strike up a friendship and have a great conversation all the way there.
Yes, and that can make the retreat a little less daunting and overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Which is also why I start the, you know, as soon as I know who's coming, then I do the intros to go, hey, because then people might go, oh, I've heard of you, or hey, you know, I'm coming from there. And, you know, I do a really, my welcome workshop is really important because of I need to rip the Band-Aid off everything really quickly so everyone gets vulnerable and feels safe. And so, you know, we do a big ice breaking workshop as well, so that no one feels that they're the only one feeling worried about being there, because actually everyone usually is. Like, that's just a reality. I've been to residencies as well, and I know, like, you know, I've sat there in a room by myself while everyone else is sitting there in rooms by themselves thinking, I'm not as good as them. Why am I here? I should go home. Like, all of that stuff. And so for me, the start is really important to go, hey, everyone, we're all just writers. Let's chat. Let's introduce each other and feel safe and calm. Does the retreat run no matter the numbers? I have a cutoff at 6. So 6 is my minimum. Because I think lower than that, I have run some lower than that, and they're okay, but I mean, I'd have to kind of really consider it for lower than 6. But I think 6 seems like a really good base number. But you know, I like to commit to it. So I mean, if I had to cancel, everyone gets their money back. Like, that's just a fact. So if I had to cancel a month or so out, you would get your money back, Alison. But my retreats have almost always booked out. And the only one that didn't book out was my last one, and that was due to lack of time in the lead up. Because I was using this place that was on the market and I couldn't lock in a date, then, and that just made it tricky for people to book then. So sorry, if the participant had to cancel. Look, I do say it depends. Like, I'm going to say, the deposit, no. The rest, it would be a conversation about why you need to cancel and whether, okay. Alison's gone. I'll just answer the question anyway, even though she's not here. So it does depend.
It's a good question.
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously it has to be viable for me to run these things. And
of course,
if I had someone cancelling at the last minute, and I had to give them their money back, then it's not sustainable for me to do this. And then that's not fair on the other writers. But what I've said is, if you can find someone else, great, let's fill that spot. I often have a wait list. So I will then go to the wait list and say, a place has come up, and if I can fill that spot, that person gets their money back.